Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a terrible revenge on a group of teenagers. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. You have no idea how far I'll go to get my revenge. To start, I work at an American fast food restaurant. You know what it is. You've probably gotten drive-through there at 1 in the morning while drunk and thoroughly regretted that decision the following morning. This chain, to the unaware, recently implemented their version of happy hour, which just made our already busy location even busier during what used to be the dead period from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. I've come to expect the lunch rush to last well into the afternoon, and drive-through customers will normally act accordingly. They'll know what they want, state their order, and drive through to get their food in a timely manner so the people behind them can get their food too. Cue car full of teenage girls at 2:30. They pull up to the menu and begin by literally screaming into the microphone. I'm still not sure what they screamed when they got there, as blood had already begun pooling in my ears from the unholy screech, but regardless of what it was, it didn't leave a good first impression. Then they spend the next 3 minutes discussing with each other what they want and falling into fits of laughter, while I sit there watching my speed of service time creep higher and higher with nothing that could be done. Finally, they order. The line staff is prepped and ready for the sheer onslaught of food these girls will want, given the wait time on the order. 1 taco and 2 small Pepsis. They spent 4 minutes in the middle of the day, a line forming behind them to order $4 worth of food. They pull up to the window and pay, their food is delivered, and they drive away. It's too bad they were never told it was happy hour, and that they could have gotten 2 medium drinks for a grand total of 89 cents less than they paid for their 2 small drinks. Don't F with me. And our second story. Go back to work. A bit of info up front. I planned on moving from a big city since the apartment rents and the general cost of living were extremely rising. I trained in a 100 people or so big company, which was specialized on doing service for the power plants near and around the big city. The loan I was offered after I completed my training was very low, so low in fact that it was not feasible to live in a space with more than 1 room due to rising costs and do anything after work. Then I meet my girlfriend, which was living in a smaller city of Germany, so the plan was hatched and I began searching for an apartment and a job there. Finding the apartment was easy, but a job? Man, this was a pain in the butt, as I was just done from my training a year ago. No one would take me under contract. I got best grades, but companies in Germany usually don't care. They only take experienced workers. So I had to resort to an agency for temporary personnel, which, like the name implies, is a place where bigger companies go when they need instantly a bigger workforce, but only temporarily, like snow removal companies. They took me with pleasure under contract since they usually get only older or not trained personnel. I told them I had no car and would rely on public transportation. They said it'd be no problem and they would find a nice place where I could work. So here's where the story begins. The temporary work agency handed me the information for the workplace I had to go. It was a company specializing in construction with stainless steel, tanks, pipe systems, etc., but it was an hour-and-a-half commute one way. Boy, I thought to myself, what have you gotten yourself into? But I had no choice. I started working there, and the colleagues were very nice in the beginning, even the people in the office, salespersons, engineers, finance, etc. They tested my skill set and were pleased with my knowledge and enjoyed the performance I gave. A couple months go by, and I noticed that the people get more and more bitter, not with me, but you could smell something was up. I asked my supervisor what it was, and he told me that the boss of the company will soon be back from his vacation, and he doesn't like it when colleagues have a small chat or are not on their workspace 24/7. It's unproductive, he says. I shrug and say, what can he do about it? The supervisor's eyes open wide. Oh, he will verbally rip you to shreds. I was skeptical and continued with my work. The next week starts, and I go to work and start welding again. As I'm listening to music, helps to keep the noise from the grinders and such out, and a track pulls up which I don't like, so I finish the weld and put my helmet up to quickly change the song, and I hear a loud voice directly behind me. Boss, referring to him as B from now on, how dare you play mobile games in the workplace? Me. Just having my smartphone in my hand, it's not even unlocked. Sorry, sir, I just wanted to change the song and continue to what? He continues screaming, I'm not paying you for listening to music. Get to work now. Wow, I thought to myself as I was putting my helmet on again. What a nice way to meet someone the first time. As I kept welding for a couple hours, it was summer and the small hall we were working in got very hot. I got thirsty. I took my bottle of water and took a couple of sips, and then B comes around and sees me drinking. I'm paying you to work, not make coffee breaks. Sorry, sir, I got thirsty, and since we have 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degree Fahrenheit around here, I hope you understand. You exaggerate. Look at the scale left from the window. It's barely 38 Celsius and 100 Fahrenheit. Now, get back to work. I stand stunned for a moment, but then continue to not get him on my tail again. As I keep working, I come to a point on the gas tank I was working on where I had to weld on the top. As I got up there, I could see all of the barriers which were dividing all the different departments, and I could see him droning between all of them to look for someone who wasn't on his work. As soon as he saw someone who he thought wasn't working, he shouted at them. Someone was getting back from the toilet, and he saw that B was in his department and was freaking hiding from him until he'd gone by. I thought to myself that this can't go on forever. Maybe he's just tuning everybody in on his first day back. Boy, was I wrong. B circled every day and continued for the full work time. The only times he was absent were when customers were touring through the building to show them what his loyal and good-treated workers can produce in such a good environment. I had enough. Whenever he interrupted, you could hear him very well even with the loud machinery, I recorded. As time goes by, more and more new orders arrive and eventually come to a point where we can't get them in time if more get in. Then a couple welders leave, so I'm left alone with my supervisor in the department. B comes around a day later and asks if I was willing to be under contract from his company and no longer the temporary work agency. B: You get higher payment, but have to do more hours. I hope it's no inconvenience since you're alone and have nothing to do after work. I happily decline his offer and tell him I was looking for alternatives from my temporary work agency on my own. He storms away. As I want to continue my work, I hear him speaking with my supervisor. I said he was pretty loud. What did you do that OP wants to leave? S: Sir, I have the suspicion it's because of you. OP's pretty happy with his colleagues, but it seems like he and the other welders aren't happy about how you treated and shouted at them and anybody else, including myself. Do something! Sir, keep the tone down. I'm not deaf. How dare you? But do something. When he leaves, we'll have to delay the orders for something since we got no one left who'll weld it together, and this'll cost the company a lot of money in delay fees. Revenge time. The next day, I wouldn't show up, but instead I called myself sick from work and that I would go get a doctor's note since I'm too stressed. I really was. I played all the recordings to my doctor, and he wrote me a letter which confirmed that I was on the brink of burning out. I sent it to my temporary work agency and told them they should search me a new place since I'm no longer capable of working there. A week later, I was going to this company a last time to grab some stuff I had left. As I was leaving, B shouted at me one last time from the other side of the building that I was alone responsible for this mess and should just go back to work and he'd forget about all this. I shrugged and said that he should better go measure his blood pressure before it gets too high and he dies. Then I got out. I stayed in contact with my supervisor, which a month later wrote me that the company had to pay $200K in contract fees because he couldn't find new welders, and B was recovering from a heart attack he had after this message and was no longer allowed to shout by his doctor. I now work in a big company under direct contract, and I've met many of my old colleagues. We sometimes make inside jokes about B and are happy that we're no longer working there. The end. And our last story, Revenge on Kevin. This is the story of someone I used to know. We'll call him Kevin. He needed a place to stay, and my mate needed someone to help pay the rent, so he moved in. Apart from a few minor dietary habits, such as walking around the house drinking chocolate milk from a 2-liter bottle and not putting it back in the fridge as the sour smell slowly grows, it seemed to be fine. In the meantime, he wasn't getting what he considered an adequate wage from taxi driving, which is fair, so he got a job at a bakery. But then he decided to go the whole hog and started gambling online. He had a system, you see, but the system still needed refining. A lot. He was shoveling money into it and still not getting a return. But to ask him, he was just a few days away from getting the big jackpot, but he didn't have the money to make it work, so he'd borrow from a loan shark. We didn't know about this part. So he lost that money too, didn't tell anyone, had no way of paying it back, went to my mate and said, "Oh, I might be moving out in the next few weeks." My mate said, sure, it wasn't a big deal and figured he'd be able to just tighten his belt a little. The next morning, after my mate went to work, Kevin went around to the power and phone companies and had everything cut off and got the bond for each of them back. Then he grabbed his pre-packed bags and vanished down south. I'm guessing he'd been getting "where's my money" from the loan shark. My mate gets home, everything's turned off, everything in the fridge is either spoiled or well on the way there. He has to run around, get everything reconnected, restock the fridge, and cover rent that month. Not a happy camper. So then a few days later, he gets a knock on the door. "Are you Kevin?" These are big guys wearing white shirts with ties, very polite, but they're ripped as feck, and he can see the tats through the white material. He's fully aware of who and what they are, and he's able to start making a guess as to why they're there. He invites him in, proves that he's not Kevin, then shows them documentation of what Kevin pulled on him. They're sympathetic, and on the way out, one of them gives him a card. "If you ever find out where he's gone, give us a call." He puts the card on the fridge. A few months later, Kevin calls from where he's vanished to, asking for his share of the rental bond. Never mind that he never put any money into it in the first place. So my mate says, "Sure, where can I mail it to?" Kevin rattles off an address. "No worries, it'll be on your doorstep before you know it." My mate hangs up, takes the card off the fridge, and makes a call. "So, you wanted to know where Kevin was?" That Christmas, he got a card from the loan shark with $500 in it. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.